when he leaves, I feel abandoned. So I resent him.
Yeah.
And then he calls me and he's checking on me all day. He's constantly trying to meet my needs a long distance. But I just feel like I don't like him.
Here's the thing with independence. It only comes when we feel safe. It doesn't come just like that. So what I mean by this is you have a 2-year-old. So this is why it's so beautiful, because you get to see it in live. When your 2-year-old knows you're in the room, she'll probably be running around, playing, kissing people, being absolutely fine. The moment you leave, she gets anxious. Children need to know that they're loved first. Then they can explore the environment. Then they can go out and be independent. But if they're not loved by their parents, they can't be independent. They're constantly looking for codependency because they don't feel safe. So you having an abusive father and a neglectful mother means there's no way you could have enjoyed your independence at 15. It's like matter of death for you at 15. But when you've got really loving and secure, safe parents, you can do anything by yourself. Now, what happens then is when you get into relationships, until you feel safe and secure, you can't calm down. You can't soothe yourself. So, and I have the same problem. I'm super clingy, and with separation, I associate separation with paranoia. I get angry and I get upset, and I need a lot of soothing afterwards. But if I get my soothing the moment I'm triggered and I get contact and I get relief, I let go. But if it's prolonged periods of no contact and prolonged periods of separation, I self-sabotage as well. So what I'll do is, I'm not calling you. You didn't even think to call me this morning. And I'm causing myself the pain.
Right.
So the key is actually checking in and having rituals. Having check-in rituals, morning, lunch, evening, or it might just be, I know every night we're going to FaceTime before bed. It soothes the anxiety a little bit. But the problem with people like us who are anxious is we want to see that they want the same level of intimacy as we do. We're like, how come you haven't checked in? How come you can sleep without calling me first? You must not love me. But they can do that because they grew up with a knowledge that people that love them come back.
Right.
So it's not that they don't love us and don't miss us. They trust the process. Whereas we associate their independence with they must not love us.
Wow.
So we have to find a mutual ground. You have to learn his independence is not a detachment from you. It's simply because he trusts you and knows he's coming home to you. And your love has made him independent. Whereas for you, that is a signal that you don't love me and need me the way I need you. You go away. But he just has to simply remember that you just need rituals, predictable rituals, and you will calm down.
Wow, I'm processing right now.
Inshallah. No, it's not easy. It's not
Wow.
easy. It takes a bit of time and it takes a bit of effort, but the abandonment you suffered, and here's the thing with a lot of people who have abusive fathers, what happens is they become then super loyal to the mum and super attached to the mum because they think, okay, this is the one parent that stayed with me. She's going to be super loyal. Chances are she's usually a bit broken as well, because only a broken person attaches to an abusive man. So then she lets you down. It's only a matter of time before that mum lets you down, either through the form of a stepdad who's also abusive, or in the form of, I can't handle you anymore, can you go do it yourself? So that mother also lets you down. And so the child is thinking, the one parent I thought would save me from my dad is just as bad, but in a different way.
Right.
And so the child goes through life looking for love and having no idea where to find it.
Wow. I'm honestly gonna cry.
So am I. I really hate these conversations because it makes me so sad. Because, it makes me so sad because you cannot control or predict your childhood, but you can predict the outcomes. And the outcomes, unfortunately, are so traumatic.
And I think this is why I wanted to start this podcast and have these conversations, because although it's super hard and it's bringing so much to the surface, I think there's so many people out there that are like what you said in the beginning, like, am I always going to be fucked up? Nobody loves me. All these the inner voice that you have that's constantly beating you and berating you and basically talking shit to you all day is generated from, it's formed by these, abusive behaviors that were done by our loved ones.
And the people who are supposed to love you. So when the people who have no choice but to love you choose not to, you think, how the hell is a random stranger going to love me?
Exactly.
And the worst thing is, what we do when we're traumatized is we pick bad partners on purpose, because then we can say, well, he was abusive, or he was a cheat. We almost deliberately pick the bad partners, so then we don't have to do the inner work. But the moment we pick a good, stable, wholesome man, and then we're still acting crazy, that's when the penny drops, and you think, this must be a me thing, and you start to hate yourself even more. Because you're just like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then whereas when you're in a toxic relationship, it's very easy. You can just say, I'm doing this because he came home late, spoke to another girl, blah blah.
Right.
But when you're in a healthy one, that's when you actually need the most work.
Wow. Isn't it crazy that we always think that we need to do the hard work with relationships that are unhealthy to make them better? But really, actually, if you do the inner work on yourself, you could have a healthy partner, and then you could do the hard work with a healthy relationship, because it makes you better.
A healthy partner is a great template. And this is the hard thing about having a healthy partner when you're anxious, is they actually are a great template, because they show you what normal behavior and calm behavior looks like. They model it for you. But at the same time, you almost feel guilty, because you're just like, they don't put me through so much stress, and I put them through so much stress. Do they even deserve it? They could easily be with someone healthy and not have to love me. Why do you want to love me so bad? I'm so difficult to love. And so you're conflicted with, I really want this person, but do I deserve this person? So it's easier just to be with a toxic man.
That's so true. And I've chosen many toxic partners. And
what did the toxicity look like previous to Oliver?
Previous to Oliver, the toxicity was somebody who supported addiction for me. So I was addicted I was addicted. Coping mechanism. I was addicted to. So when I was younger, and I lived in Saudi Arabia, when my dad would hurt me and my mom would leave, and there was nothing to be addicted to. There was no alcohol, there was no substances. So I was addicted to diving out of my brain. So I would dissociate. Yeah, absolutely. Look outside the window for hours and hours and create my own stories.
Okay, so you would struggle in school.
Yes.
Yeah, because when you live in a chaotic home, what happens is, if you can't escape the chaos, the only thing you can do is tune out.
Yeah.
And you can tune out, and you can almost look out the window for hours on end, or you can look at your phone for hours on end. Nothing goes in. Right. You can read a book, nothing will go in. Your brain won't compute what's going on, because it had to, as a survival mechanism, tune out when there's trauma.
Absolutely. Actually, this is really sad, but it's true. And you've just said it, so it's reminded me. I've only been able to actually start reading a book and actually ingest information. Yeah. I would say 4 years ago. I've been with Oliver for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I do find that being with him, actually now when I look back at my life with him, he's made me better in so many ways. So for example, the toxicity with the ex was that if I was feeling down, it's like, who cares? Let's go take a bunch of pills and drink alcohol. We'll do it together. It's fine. We're both high. We're both drunk. And then with Oliver, he is incredibly passionate. He has such a drive. He has no really need to drink or want to drink. He's like, I don't need it. Like, I'm good. I'm happy, And I'm like, what do you mean? And for a while we would fight, because I wanted to finish a bottle of wine by myself. And he would keep asking me, are you okay?
Yeah.
What's
because
wrong?
It's a coping.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'd be like, why are you asking me if I'm okay?
You're
I'm
trying
fine.
to soothe yourself.
Exactly. So that's gone now. And I'm very grateful for my partner for helping me through that. Even though I fought back a lot.
How are your dreams? Do you sleep well? Do you have good dreams?
I have been on Zoloft ever since I had Callie, so about 2 years now.
Good or bad decision?
Great decision.
Great. I'm really happy to hear that, because sometimes I recommend it to clients.
Yes.
And they're terrified. And I understand, because I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals and all of this stuff. I completely agree. But when your trauma is too much, you can't think your way out of it. You literally can't. So I can sit there for hours, and I can take their money day in, week after week, because they don't want to take drugs. But unfortunately, there's only so much I can do. Their brain is traumatized. Their brain is producing neurochemicals that are not calming themselves down. So They can logically understand, but when they get triggered, it's like their body's been set on fire, and they don't know how to calm it down. And they'll call me, and I'm like, unfortunately, it's but neurological. So sometimes I recommend going to a doctor.
It saved my life.
Especially when you have become a mum.
Absolutely. It saved my life. With postpartum, I would hear Callie cry. My daughter, her name's Callie. And her cries would bring out a specific, as if somebody was pressing play on a button and say, on a tape. And it was me crying as a kid and banging my head on the wall, nobody listening to me or nobody coming to me, and me being in so much pain, and that just having to be me dealing with it by myself for hours and hours. So when she would just cry because she's hungry, I just wanted a little milk bottle, I would feel like I was torturing her. And the midwife came to me one day and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I usually, I totally like, oh, under the rug. No, everything's fine,
Yeah.
And then it bursts in one
course.
go. And I told her how I was feeling. And I said, I feeling, suicidal, and I was feeling this way. And she recommended that I go to see a psychologist and everything. And then when they put me on Zoloft, the reason I brought it up is because I wouldn't sleep before that.
Yeah.
I would have nightmares. I would see
PTSD
my dad.
is nightmares.
Yes. Yeah. I would see his body like he's dead and he's in the room. It's horrible nightmares I didn't even want to describe. But Zoloft helped me not just be able to, like you said, that scene in Harry Potter where they go through that maze and it's all closed off. I felt like I was in that my whole life. And finally with Zoloft, I felt like the door opened.
Yeah, and the thing is, people are really against it and stuff, and I completely understand why. Because I took it very, very short period for 4 weeks. I was in London. I was not coping well with the change in lifestyle, and I literally had to take something to calm myself down. And what I couldn't believe, because I was only on it for 3-4 weeks, and then I came off it, and I couldn't believe I was able to actually think about what's going on right now, rather than thinking about all these millions of other things and worrying. If I'm drinking this coffee, I'd be thinking about the coffee. If I would be playing with my nephew, I'd be playing. Whereas before, I'd be drinking this coffee, but in my head, I'd be like, and I just couldn't enjoy life. Life didn't exist for me. So and it was such a short period, but it actually led to such a permanent change in my neurology that I now actually, if I see somebody that's extremely affected and therapy isn't working, I actually say to them, maybe go see a psychiatrist first. And I really like that you brought up postpartum, because I think what's a really underspoken about topic is when you have a baby, it's the most beautiful, amazing thing in the world, and you love them so painfully, like you love them so deeply. But that experience can only be felt when you've had a good childhood and you've got this support network. So when a baby comes into our family, there's like 50 different people looking after the baby and so excited and happy and stuff like that. But there's some people who were never modeled love, who have no emotional support, and they genuinely think, if I'm not alive, this baby will die. I've got no mum, I've got no dad, I've got no sisters, I've got no one to support it. And if I fuck up, this entire baby's ruined. Imagine that pressure on one human being, when really children are supposed to be raised by countless members of family.
Right.
They're supposed to be raised by like a tribe of 10.
Right.
One person solely responsible who's also been traumatized. Imagine the pain. And imagine the thoughts where they can go to you, like, okay, if this baby falls and dies, like what? It's so whereas when you've got a family network, it's like, how would the baby fall? There's about 50 people looking at it. Yeah?
Right.
So the trauma that goes through mothers who have been hurt in their childhood and now have to raise another human being when nobody modeled them love is so damaging for them. And they're not even free to talk about it, because then you look like a bad mum.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you look like you're supposed to be the happiest. Be grateful. There's people trying for a baby for 10 years.
Oh yeah,
this
I got
sort
that
of
a lot.
stuff. And it's like, but I don't choose these feelings.
Right.
Yeah?
I got a lot of I would tell Oliver, my husband, I would say, I'm feeling very alone. He'd be like, but everyone loves you. And I hated when he said that, because I was like, well, everyone's asking about the baby. And that really bothered me. I remember that everyone's like, how is she? Or I would walk into a room and people would just be like, oh my God, show us the baby. And it's like, I had the pain from my trauma. I had pain from my C-section. I had pain in my mind and my pain in my body. And I was doing everything to just kind of survive to make her the happiest. But it felt like everybody was focusing on her, which I think also nobody talks about that. It's like, well, where's the baby? And it's like, what about the mom?
But, again, I hate that everything boils down to childhood. But, when you have a mum and dad that loves you deeply, when people then start loving your child, you see it as a reflection of their love for you. So you see it as, oh, you love my baby, you must love me so much.
Oh, see, I don't see it
goes
that way.
in that direction when you've been loved. But when you haven't been loved, everything is snatching love from you. You see everything as snatching love from you.
My God, I'm going to remember that forever. That's so true.
It's a through you process. Why would I care about your baby if I didn't love you so much? Think about how much I love my brother's baby on this, that, and the, I would never love a stranger's baby. It's a reflection of how much I love you. But when you haven't been loved as a child through your parents, you see love going somewhere else as snatch. So sometimes women get jealous of their husband's connection with their child, or husbands might get jealous of a child's connection. But really, when you're full, when you've been given love by your parents, you see it as is passing down the love.
Right.
But when you haven't been giving that love, it's snatching the love from you. It's snatching. So you're almost always seeing love like some people are thieving love from you,
right,
rather than pouring love into you because of childhood, when your parents, unfortunately.
It's all stemming from there. And that's why we're focusing here on sharing the message of doing the inner work, doing the hard work. It's so worth it. Seeing people like you, I mean, you're a blessing in this kind of world where there's so many variables that can just make everything we're already feeling so much more intense.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing the inner work to be a little bit more self-aware to see it, then the trail of self-sabotage that somebody
it's what it does to the child. It makes the child its own killer. The child is literally murdering themselves. It's a slow suicide when you don't love them. So they find a way to kill themselves on a daily basis, either by the way that they're thinking, by the food that they're eating, by the substances they're taking, or the partners they're choosing. And that's why we as human beings owe it to children to give them that, just the head start. And I get a lot of hate online, a lot, especially from single mothers and stuff like that, because I talk a lot about the importance of children being loved. And sometimes I can see mothers deprive children of their fathers when they're healthy fathers, not when they're abusive, even when they're healthy, just as a form of punishment. And I get so much backlash and so much hate. But the reason I do that is I've never, ever come across a client that has had two really loving parents and is then engaging in a slow suicide. It doesn't happen. It's only when either one or both have hurt them in ways that they can't even articulate, but their body keeps score of it. So they start becoming masochists, either emotionally or physically. And I always find it comes from family and comes from mum and dad. So that's why I just think, forget the child. Let me teach parents, because then I will have no clients. One day, inshallah, God willing, we'll live in a world where there'll be no clients if we fix parents. But they don't want to have that conversation. Welcome to my course on masculinity. And in this course, not only will I be able to completely transform your understanding of women, but on a more personal level, you will enhance your self-esteem, self-respect, and your boundaries. The goal of this course is to take a man that has absolutely fantastic intentions, wants to find love, wants to commit, wants to have a good, healthy relationship, but is finding that he's constantly running into women who are narcissistic, who are disrespectful, who are disloyal. Now, if you are finding that continuously, then there must be something in your engagement with women that is causing this. What my course will do is look at where this problem comes from, how to resolve it, how to communicate effectively with men and women, and how to command respect. Most importantly, how to improve your self-respect. And throughout the course, you'll be given interactive sessions, but with course materials to help you channel and journal your learning. So if you are interested in becoming the most masculine version of yourself, join today.